I asked ChatGPT for 5 Paul McCartney bass lines that prove he's a bass genius and why, and I've compared them to 5 Gene Simmons bass lines to prove he's just as good. The first track I got suggested is Something.
She moves.
Now, we all know that Something is a masterpiece and Paul McCartney's bass line is like a jewel in the crown. But why exactly is it considered such an important bass line? According to ChatGPT, first of all, it is melodic but never distracting. McCartney plays a melodic bass line that moves independently and sings like its own counter melody, but crucially, it never steals focus from George Harrison's vocal or melody. It provides perfect harmonic support, creating smooth transitions between chords, and it uses voice leading almost like a classical arrangement. All that reminds me of another bass line, Going Blind by Kiss. Something is very melodically expressive, especially in the verse where the bass responds to the lead vocals like a lead instrument. So does Gene. The bass line in Something also provides perfect harmonic support, outlining the chord changes beautifully. For example, it highlights descending lines. The very same thing happens in Going Blind. ChatGPT says also about Paul's line. In the verses, it's lyrical and supportive. In the bridge, it becomes bolder and more expressive. In the final chorus, it opens up with fills and climbing lines.
I want to leave her now. You know I believe in how.
So to sum it up, Something is a cool bass line because it's melodically expressive, harmonically sophisticated, rhythmically nuanced, emotionally supportive, iconic in tone and execution. It's debatable, of course, but in my book, all of this can be said about Going Blind. The second song is Come Together. According to ChatGPT, the bass is the riff. The groove is instantly recognizable, sets the mood, carries the song's attitude, works as both rhythm and melody. McCartney essentially turned the bass into the song's lead instrument. Now let's take a look at 100,000 Years by Kiss. Instantly recognizable? Yeah. Does it set the mood? It does. Works as both rhythm and melody? Yeah. Chat also says that Paul plays with an extremely laid-back feel slightly behind the drums. This creates a dark, swampy groove, hypnotic looseness, a vibe more like R&B or funk than British rock. The feel is what makes the song iconic. Except for the swampy part, I think it's a pretty good description of Gene's bass line, which also closely combines R&B and British rock, styles of music Gene Simmons is famously fond of. It also says that McCartney strips it down to root notes, a bluesy pentatonic figure, subtle slides, and perfect spacing. In my book, Gene's is just as good. If you remove the bass, the song loses its entire groove. The verse feels empty, the hook disappears. This is a perfect example of a song where the bass is the foundation, lead, and personality all at once. Next song is Rain. According to ChatGPT, it's one of the earliest rock tracks where the bass carries as much musical personality as the guitars and vocals. The line is highly melodic but still serves the groove. McCartney walks through chord tones, scale runs, bluesy passing notes, and rhythmic accents. All fair points and definitely another great and driving Beatles bass line. Now let's take a look at Let Me Know by Kiss. Ticks all the boxes. chord tones. Bluesy passing notes. So again, different songs, but if we take it down to technical ability or the bass contribution to the overall sound, I guess it's another draw. ChatGPT also says Rain complements Ringo's drum performance. Many musicians consider Rain one of Ringo Starr's finest recorded drum tracks. Paul responds with a bass line that mirrors the drum's heavy feel, pushes against the laid-back vocal, adds a swirling, almost psychedelic momentum. The interplay makes this rhythm section incredibly modern for 1966. So I guess it plays a big role in defining McCartney as a bass master. He was one of the first, and he definitely holds a place among the godfathers of that style of rock. But if you break it down to the facts, Gene Simmons is just as good of a bass player. Next up is Drive My Car.
Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Baby, you can drive my...
According to ChatGPT, it marks a shift from simple accompaniment to a funk-influenced groove. Before 1965, most Beatles' bass lines were melodic and supportive, but Drive My Car is one of the first to feature a syncopated R&B funk-derived groove. The bass line doesn't just follow the chords, it establishes the song's entire rhythmic identity. It was heavily influenced by Otis Redding's Respect, and you can hear Paul absorbing soul and Motown ideas. Let's take a look at Dirty Living by Kiss. If the Motown inspiration and funk bass groove are the elements that make Drive My Car a great bass line, Gene Simmons' work on Dirty Living, again, ticks all the boxes. In fact, you can compare it to Knock on Wood by Eddie Floyd, another famous R&B track. Not only does the bass drive the rhythm, pumping on the one of each bar and pushing the track, but it also provides melody, becoming a lead part in the post-chorus section. Plus all the super cool licks that respond to the main vocal like a horn section, another Gene Simmons trademark. I love that. According to ChatGPT, in Drive My Car, the bass and drums lock together with unprecedented tightness. The interplay with Ringo is unusually pocket-driven for early Beatles.
Working for peanuts is all very fine, but I can show you.
Deep backbeat, kick drum, and bass sync ideas. Check out the verse of Dirty Living, just as good.
I can't get enough of what I need. People all around me.
The last track I got suggested is For No One, which according to Chat is important for its melodic bass work. Unlike simple root note bass lines common in the early 1960s pop, Paul McCartney's bass in For No One is highly melodic. It doesn't just outline the chords, it moves in counterpoint to the vocal melody, creating emotional tension.
No sign of love behind the tears cried for no one.
Really good. Now let's check out Gene Simmons' work on the acoustic version of Beth. Beth was originally recorded with a piano and a set of strings. So what he's doing here is taking the orchestral arrangement and translating it to bass guitar. It's a beautiful bass line that takes the acoustic version of Beth to a completely new level. Coincidentally, both songs use the same key and a very similar chord sequence.
You want her, you need her, and yet you don't believe her. When just a few more hours, and I'll be right home to you.
Some of the passages, like the power chord arpeggios, are even the same.
You think she needs you.
It's also similar how they both keep a low profile during the vocal parts and then fill in the harmony in the instrumental breaks. And for me, that's another draw. So is Gene Simmons as good as Paul McCartney? Yes. So why so many people consider him a bad bass player? First of all, Gene Simmons did not play on some of Kiss's most iconic bass lines, like Love Gun, which were composed and recorded by lead singer Paul Stanley. This has nothing to do with ability, it's just the way they work. They track music separately, and Gene, who, if you ask me, is a very humble and sensible musician, was okay with it. Another famous Kiss bass line, Detroit Rock City, was recorded by Gene but famously composed by producer Bob Ezrin. On top of that, it's common knowledge that during the 80s, when Kiss really solidified their brand and image, Gene wasn't around very much. He was more into acting and producing, so he did not play on most of their 80s productions, which as a result have led to no real bass guitar in them. Finally, although there are great songs he composed with really cool bass lines like Naked City, Kiss are far more identified with Paul Stanley's songs. He wrote all the hits, so on most of them, like Lick It Up or Forever, there's virtually no bass. If you ask me, Gene's songs are as good, if not better than Paul's, but not only does Paul have a much more radio-friendly voice, he was teaming up with some of the best songwriters in the business to deliberately write hits. So it's not surprised Paul's songs are the ones that made history. On top of that, Gene Simmons is famously very vocal about his opinions, which are often honest and direct. He also voiced political ideas that do not resonate well with the rock community in general. So a lot of people just don't like him for reasons that have nothing to do with music. All of this creates the perception that Gene is not a very good bass player, but that's far from true. He produced way less music with prominent bass work than McCartney, of course, but if you look at the parameters that are normally used to define a good bass player based on the work he did, Gene ticks all the boxes. There's a famous clip on YouTube where Carol Kay shows him some licks. A lot of you guys laugh at it, but if you really pay attention, it just shows how quickly and perfectly he learns the part. I've seen Kiss many times, and I've never heard him make a mistake, sing out of key, or not be a badass, professional, and fun to watch rock and roll bass player. I hope this video gives him some justice. Not that he needed it, but I thought I'd speak up about one of my favorite musicians ever. So, long live the demon. Thank you for watching this video. See you soon.